1 out of every 4 New Yorkers live within half a mile of a mega warehouse like this. And according to a new study, these things could be poisoning all of us.
The clinics are filled. Everybody's having asthma. Everybody's waiting on treatment.
There are about 15,000 daily truck trips coming into the Hunts Point Food Distribution Center.
Their family's asthma stems from the air pollution in their neighborhoods.
I was in and out the hospitals. Growing up, my mom was in and out of the hospital herself.
It's the residents who have to deal with the tailpipe emissions.
Those tailpipe emissions come from the average of 300 diesel trucks every single hour.
So, according to the Environmental Defense Fund, mega warehouses are taking over New York, and 25% of us live near one, including me. And apparently the pollution from these things is something that is poisoning all of us, without us even knowing it. But there's other things that are poisoning New Yorkers as well, like excessive traffic, some of the worst in the country, streets that are overflowing with trash and pests, and even polluted waterways that overflow into the streets and get into our apartments. And all 4 of these are working together right now to make us all sick. But because we're gonna investigate how these things all work together to poison us, it means my lifespan will probably be shorter by the end of this video because I gotta go to each of them. My health insurance is probably gonna drop me. But in order to understand how each of these disasters work together to take time away from us, we first have to look at the growing number of mega warehouses popping up in New York City. Now, I've never heard the term mega warehouse before, but apparently this Costco behind me counts as one because it's over 50,000 square feet of space. And for reference, 50,000 square feet, that's like 250 studio apartments in New York. And according to the EDF, it's not the structures themselves that are poisoning us. No, it's what goes on inside of them. You hear that beeping right there? These things see dozens of trucks a day. Sometimes a big center that has multiple warehouses, it'll see hundreds of deliveries. And even though I don't consider myself to be some sort of eco-warrior, this is definitely a repercussion of modern life. And it's not that the trucks are full of toxic chemicals or nuclear waste either. It's the fact that they are driving into these facilities over and over again. It's the exhaust that comes out of these vehicles. Big trucks on a daily basis, that's gonna add up over time. Right over here you can see downtown Brooklyn, and on the other end of that bridge right there are apartments. Now personally, I feel fine standing here. Even though there's a ton of trucks and I see one about every 10 seconds, I don't feel any respiratory distress, and I've seen some people that look like they were going for a jog. They seemed like they were doing just fine, but that's what's actually so scary about this type of pollution. We don't notice it, and over time it can become a big health hazard.
There are about 15,000 daily truck trips coming into the Hunts Point Food Distribution Center, which is the second largest food distribution center in the country.
It's no secret.
Okay, so that's the Hunts Point Distribution Center in the Bronx, and it's much larger than everything you see around here. And that place is the second largest distribution center in the entire United States. I didn't even know New York had stuff like that. Wild. And wait till you hear what happens to the people that live nearby.
The city released data in December showing children under the age of 17 experienced more than 6 times the amount of emergency room visits.
The problem for those poor folks is that all that auto and vehicle gas, it is piling up there more than anywhere else in the city. And the reason this is a growing problem for New York is because the best place to build a mega warehouse is nearby a population center. That way you decrease the amount of time it takes for your stuff to go from warehouse to customer. That was the ambulance. And if you think about it, even though Costco is all about the in-person experience, look at all these people lining up. People are doing that on their computers right now to buy stuff on Amazon. And you know something, without mega warehouses being built nearby where you have people, you wouldn't have e-commerce, you wouldn't have online shopping, you wouldn't have Costco, because people and things have to get from where they are to where the customer is. Here it's immediate, Amazon it's 2 days. The world we live in would not exist without these things. But the issue for New York is that you've already got millions of people living here, 8 million residents to be exact, and as neighborhoods and parts of the city continue to grow and expand, stuff like this isn't going to be hard to find. But the specific issue of mega warehouses, that they are creators of pollution, that isn't just limited to the warehouses themselves or the activity around them. In fact, there are other things that we New Yorkers are forced to live even closer to that could be even worse for our health. And unlike mega warehouses, which are a new and growing problem, this next one is an old problem that's been with us for at least 100 years. And it's a problem for everybody, not just those of us that live within half a mile of one of these guys. This is the next problem over here. all this traffic, and warehouses have nothing on traffic. And even though NYC is a pedestrian's paradise, you've got 2.2 million registered vehicles in the city alone, on top of 8 million New Yorkers, which means around 25% of us, give or take, have a car. And it's worth mentioning there are a higher concentration of vehicles here than there are in most other parts of the state. Look at all these cars out here, all of them pumping out fumes. I probably shouldn't even be standing on this bridge right here, because when I found out how bad these things pollute, I was shocked. People live around here. And look, right above the expressway, that's a college right there. Behind it, you've got apartments, and over here you have a school. Here's the highway, here's some more apartments. That's a basketball court. Whoever plays out there is breathing it in. And believe it or not, this down here is nothing compared to how bad people have it in the Bronx.
The Bronx, where the convergence of some of the largest, noisiest, and air-polluted highways meet in all of New York City.
Now, what's crazy is an estimated 300 trucks an hour cross that cross-Bronx expressway. That's insane, and those are trucks. And you've got tens of thousands of cars driving on highways like this. Just like the mega warehouses, all this traffic creates a lot of fumes. And if you breathe it in high enough concentrations, it could cause health problems. But studies show New York City has relatively good air quality, and it consistently exceeds the standards set by the World Health Organization and the EPA. In most areas of the city, with some exceptions, which we'll get to, but New York City does have one big challenge when it comes to air quality, and that is called ozone, because all of this car exhaust, when it meets with sunlight, it gets turned into ozone gas. And exposure to ozone can make breathing difficult, especially for people who already have respiratory problems. And since there's no cure for asthma, the fact that it's increasing in those neighborhoods, that means those residents are going to suffer with it their entire lives. Plus, asthma rates are up in Staten Island as well. And not only do many people suspect increased asthma rates are because of all the increased traffic on the road, critics say it's only going to get worse. Because not only are there more and more vehicles on the road every single year, but once congestion pricing kicks in and pushes traffic into the outer boroughs, people are worried that asthma rates, not just in the Bronx and Staten Island, but also in Brooklyn and Queens, could go way up.
It's no secret why certain neighborhoods of the South Bronx are nicknamed Asthma Alley.
We have 3 highways encircling our community. We have 5 bridges intersecting with this neighborhood.
The air quality here is not great.
So in the Bronx, it's not just warehouses that are a problem. You've got construction companies, you've got trucks basically going all over the place up there. And now people think that those traffic patterns are going to get even more intense because people don't want to spend the money to come into the city because there's going to be a toll now. And this has many New Yorkers wondering, if congestion pricing isn't something that's going to benefit all New Yorkers all at the exact same time, why are city officials pushing so hard for it? Well, that has to do with money. The city is going to make a lot of money from this, and all that money is going to go to the MTA to supposedly fix and repair the subway. We'll have to see if that happens. But the city has basically admitted that they know these plans are going to cause excess pollution in the Bronx, and they're going to spend $130 million of the money that they raise from congestion pricing to build asthma treatment facilities and start asthma treatment programs. Which, if you think about it, is almost like a company dumping toxic chemicals into a waterway and then saying, hey, we'll spend some of the profit we make from our products, which have polluted the waterway, to build a water treatment facility eventually. And in the Bronx, families on average are making around $40,000 a year, but in Manhattan, families are making $90,000 a year. And that makes it seem like traffic will improve in affluent neighborhoods at the expense of the middle class. And that's probably why right now there are multiple lawsuits against the city and against the EPA over congestion pricing and what it might do. However, the next disaster on our list is so dangerous and so deadly it could be even worse than a mouthful of car exhaust, and it's something that not even the rich are going to be able to hide from. All right, look, I love New York. I've lived here for over 10 years, but living here is like living in a dump sometimes. And we're losing the war on trash. It is literally everywhere, and these bins are overflowing. But the big problem isn't even the fact that our trash cans are overfull or that we don't have enough of them or that we don't empty them. It's how New York City disposes of trash in the first place. And for many, many years, they've been using these black trash bags. You just throw them out on the side of the street. And you know, not only is loose garbage unsightly and disgusting to smell, it's also an environmental hazard and a health hazard. And that's because garbage, in all of its forms, like this open-air trash can right here, this attracts flies and rats, which we'll get to. But flies land on loose garbage, and then they fly somewhere else, and they land on that yummy-looking croissant that you're about to take a bite out of, or on that piece of pizza you're about to eat as you sit outside. But if you consume those germs, you could get really sick. And I'm sure that taking a deep breath of contaminated garbage air on a hot summer day isn't something that's gonna make anybody feel their best.
The mayor has been very clear. He doesn't want the black bags on the street.
The solution, according to a highly
highly anticipated new report is to put trash in secure, rat-proof metal containers.
Now, the good news is that the city is trying to do something about overflowing trash. This is one possible solution right here, if they'll empty it on time. These are the city's rat-proof trash bins for recycling and for regular garbage. Rats haven't yet gotten to a point where they know how to work a handle and get into something and then safely get out. And the city's ultimate goal is to get to a place where all trash is containerized and you don't see it on the streets anymore. For restaurants and cafes, they have to containerize their garbage, and soon that will also apply to apartment buildings, which is crazy because the apartments upstairs, 1, 2, 3 floors of them make a lot of waste, but right now that little bakehouse is the only place that has to use a container. But there's another issue with trash containerization. Look at how small this little building is. This right here is the front door. There's no way you're gonna fit 10 or 12 waste bins in a tiny little place. But unlike trash bags, waste-proof bins and containers aren't likely to reopen as long as they can close completely. But the city's got bigger problems than trash bags on the side of the road and containers that don't fully close. Okay, most people probably think this is a cute little restaurant that's under construction, but I have past experience working in property management and real estate here, and what I see over here is a rat's nest. There's food at the restaurant, nice little place to hide right outside. Look at that, there's a rat trap right here, right outside both the restaurant and the construction site. You better believe rats are living on the other side of most of these construction sites. Plus, they live inside the walls and the floorboards of this little outdoor dining shed. Look at that crack right there. Animals could totally squeeze in and out of that. And some restaurants, you'll walk by at night and you'll hear squeaking coming out of these. Ugh.
I said it was a cat. She said it was a rat.
Rats, they're just about everywhere you turn. And this morning, city council members are expected to pass a legislative package aimed at putting a lid on New York City's out-of-control rat problem.
Okay, so are rats a new problem in New York City? Absolutely not. But are they getting worse? Yes. Complaints have spiked 8%. And check out the city's little rat map here. 41,000 complaints of rodent activity. The problem is the city really doesn't have any powers to stop the rats. There's just so much food for them to eat, plenty of water for them to drink and take a bath, and they can live in any location they want. In fact, pretty much every building in the city has rats in it somewhere doing something, and they're always chewing. Because even after they've found food to eat, their teeth are always growing. They're rodents. They have to bite and gnaw and chew at stuff to get them to stop doing that. And they're probably already inside this brand new building chewing on whatever they can get their little mouths around. Concrete, metal, wood, you name it, they are chewing on it. And those half-eaten hot dogs don't stand a chance. And people get sick in one of two ways from the rats. The first is in direct contact with a rat by petting it or letting it bite you. And the second is coming into contact with waste that comes from the rats themselves. You see that plastic box there under that fence? That right there, that's another rat bait station. There's actually a couple of them out here. But believe it or not, furry little creatures that chew on things, destroy property, and make people sick, they're not the worst thing the city's dealing with. In fact, there's something else that doesn't live on the ground that's a problem and actually comes from the sky. Welcome to the most polluted waterway in New York City, the gorgeous, wonderful, pristine Gowanus Canal. That is a gorgeous green right there. If you fall into this place, you should get yourself checked out immediately. It's an EPA cleanup site. No fishing, no crabbing, no swimming, no boating. There's even a little air monitoring thing over here. Look at that. They got some sort of science thing up here in this cage doing something. I think it's called a use flow controller. Now this here waterway, it's not poisoning us right now, but that water level, it's pretty high. And what do you think happens when it rains?
A state of emergency. That's the declaration from the governor of New York as the state is inundated by constant rain that's led to flash floods and warnings in some areas that residents need to move to higher ground.
Yeah, all that water you see on the news, it's not all from the sky. The water from the rain mixes with the water that's already here, and then it flows pretty much everywhere. On top of that, rainwater runoff mixes with whatever garbage is out in the road, and together it just turns into the worst liquid ever imaginable. It's gross. Since the water's full of germs, as it winds its way down the sidewalk along the curb, it picks up all kinds of garbage like what you see in these bushes over here. And this is what's getting into people's basements and getting into the subway. If it's raining in the city and you step in a puddle, you've essentially just stepped in a dumpster. And this is a known phenomenon, sewage everywhere in New York City, but that's not how things are supposed to work. If the sewers and grates and drainage areas were properly maintained, water that goes in here would be able to get dispersed without any problem. And it would be taken to a decontamination facility, but that's not what's happening because the sewers aren't well maintained and they overflow when it rains. And the reason the city is sending untreated sewage into the actual streets is because they don't want to overload these decontamination plants. But good news, the city has a new plan to help us all live to the honorable age of 83. Don't get me wrong, it sounds like an amazing goal, but based on what we've covered so far with all this pollution that the city's dealing with, it definitely seems like they have their work cut out for them. And to many people, this type of goal is never gonna happen. Maybe what's going on here is this is just another one of those promises that politicians love to tell us about, like cures for cancer, eternal life, anything that'll get us to root for them and hope they're successful. Just look at Elon Musk. He says he wants to go to Mars, and people are like, you know what? That's why I'm gonna buy a Tesla, because this man wants to go to Mars and save the human race. You need a goal that is so aspirational, it's actually unachievable. Then people will admire you for having it. But can New York City get a handle on all this pollution so that we can live to be 83? Or are stories like what this note says actually true? Are we never gonna beat the rats or the pollution? Anyways, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.